everyone. Today is the evening of March 15th. This is our fourth session. We've started this just about a month ago. Huge thanks to Rohan Singh, my colleague. Together, we are running these weekly YouTube sessions. Just want to start off with our YouTube site. It's called Charts Are Fun. That's the channel at Charts Are Fun. Our goal here really is to educate you about how to use charts for your investment decisions. We are not providing any kind of investment advice because we're not professional investment advisors. Our goal here really is to guide you on your decisions using charts as a guiding tool. Out of the American market and do an interesting comparison. This was a blog that was published this week. If I have to look at investing into the future, if I had options to invest in countries, what are some countries that have actually done quite well, not from a short-term horizon? Let's just take a 2-decade, like a 20-year time horizon. So going back to 2004 into a 20-year or a 2-decade time horizon, the country that did the best, which actually grew over 10x, was Nifty index, which is the Nifty 50, one of the core blue chip index of the Indian stock market. So that multiplied 950%, which is over 10x. The next country that came closest to that is Brazil, which was over 383.28%. So that's a little over 4.8x in terms of where the Brazilian market went up in the last 20 years. Right after that is actually two of the interesting markets that are correlated in the way, if you look at their the two lines in here, they're almost one on top of the other. They happen to be the S&P 500 and they happen to be the German DAX. Those two were actually the next two that were aligned right on top of each other. And actually the weakest market in this whole the analysis was actually, in this case, it was just about little less than 100%. It was the French index, the CAC 40. And China market, that was just a little above that. If you look at the SSEC, that was at about 141%, which means it went up 2.4x. And the CAC was 113%, which is 2.1x over the 20-year period. Now, if I look at the market of the Indian stock exchange and the key index, the Nifty, and you look at a 3-year weekly chart, it had a beautiful cup and handle. So 18.6 was the top of the cup, 15.1 was the bottom of the cup, came to 18.8 as the right top of the cup. So subtract the 15.1 to 18.8, that's about 3.7. Add the 3.7 to 18.8, goes to 22.5. That's exactly the peak that the Nifty met this week, 22.26. So it's met its peak. It's now finished its pattern, time for a pullback, time to look out for a pullback. And that's something that the Indian stock market could be set for a correction, along with what we're seeing with US and other markets around the world. So now if you look at, okay, from the October low that we had, the US market bottomed around 27th October, the Indian market bottomed just the day before on 26th October. If I look at from the 26th October low over the last 90 plus days, 96 days, which sectors has done the best? And these are the Nifty, just like S&P 500 is broken up into sectors. This is also broken up into IT, energy, consumption. PSE stands for the public sector enterprises. These are government-owned entities that they've down the line privatized. So they have effectively kind of created shares on them and kind of listed them in the stock exchange. And those have actually done the best. So if you look at this color here, and it's the magenta color, it did by far the best, climbing over 52% during this time period. So the PSE sector was the strongest in that time period. And the weakest, actually, if you notice, was the financial, which is the banks. So banks were quite weak. They were only up just a little over 8%, versus the PSE, the public sector, was over 52%. Now, if you look at the BSE, which is the Sensex, which is a broader index, Nifty, which is the top 50 enterprises in the blue chips of India, the small cap, CNX SML, the mid cap, MID, and then the CNX has components, the 100, 200, and so on. Just like we have S&P 100, S&P 200, and so on, they have CNX 100, 200. And then we threw in 3 ETFs. So if you are in US and you want to invest in the Indian market, what are your options? Well, there is a wisdom tree India ETF called EPI. There is iShares MSCI India that tracks the very similar to how the Nifty is. It's INDA. And then there is a fund called IFN. And IFN in this case is in brown. If you look at the same time period from 26th October to 15th March, as of today's close, the best performer was actually the IFN. This is the IFN, which is the ETF that is available in the US for anyone to trade. That was the best performer, was up over 36%. So after we do get a correction in the Indian market, a place if you do want to invest in the Indian market could be an ETF to look into is IFN. So notice the rest of the ETFs and the markets were all clustered, gaining anywhere from little over 14% to 22%. Among the sectors, among actually the sizes, the mid cap was at little over 22%. The mid cap is one that we see is in this magenta color, and then the others were right below. So this is again the key ETF to look at, IFN. If you then look at the prospectus, the IFN India Fund, and it's Aberdeen is the fund manager, and you look at the top 10 holdings, ICICI, HDFC, these are the two top banks of India, Infosys, which is an IT consulting arm, Bharti Airtel, the big telco, Ultratech Cement, a commodity kind of a company manufacturing cement. As you can imagine, huge amount of construction going on in India. So cement tends to be a growing player in the industrial perspective. Unilever is actually a consumer sector stock, manufactures a lot of the staples, consumer staples that people buy. Power Grid was actually a utility company. And while you think the utilities are boring in India, it means a lot. Electricity generation in India is huge. Still a lot of unmet demand, a lot of villages still needing electricity. It actually was one of the best performers. We're going to shortly see. Larsen & Toubro is an industrial company, does a lot of engineering services across India. SBI Life Insurance, so it's State Bank of India, it's a nationalized bank, but they have the life insurance arm. And then finally, Tata Consultancy Service, which like Infosys, is one of the top 3 or 4 Indian consulting firms out in the world. So now if you look at those 10 and you start seeing from the same 26th October lows, which performed the best. So if you notice here, the best performer was actually that utility company, Power Grid Corp. So you can imagine it was one, it comes from the PSE, Public Sector Enterprise. It is a government-owned entity that was kind of some shares were listed for the retail investors and the institutional investors to be able to get a share of that sector. But the electricity is a core need in India. Government, of course, is subsidizing, helping growth of electricity. It was the best performing stock in the IFN. And the fact that IFN had a core component of that in its mix of stocks, it did so well compared to the other ETFs. And then, of course, the next best was Bharti Airtel. That's a telco that's also growing and doing quite well. So the top performing Power Grid was over 38%, just over the last 96 days. We're talking about just the last 5 months. And the next one was a little over 34% was Bharti Airtel. And then the one below that, Tata Consultancy. TCS did very well as well. And then the one right below that was actually, it wouldn't be the banks because the banks were all poor. This one I think is, let's see, it's Larsen & Toubro. So that's an engineering firm. It is in the industrial sector. It did quite well as well. So those were the top. And now if we look at running a scan, so if you want to invest in the Indian market, say for some reason you have a demat account, you're able to invest straight in the Indian market, with stock charts, you can actually run scans. And scans in this case has got its own simple language, the type being a stock, in this case, the simple moving average, in this case over 20 days, and you're doing a moving average on volume, saying that you want to be trading 40,000 shares, from that volume. And the way you're doing it in this case is you're doing a monthly RSI being over 90. You could do a daily, weekly, monthly. Monthly means over a longer period, you want to see if the monthly RSI is over 90. And the country in this case is India. If you run the scan, you come back with actually a few set of stocks. And the few set of stocks that we came back with are what we see in here in the scan that I ran. So I ran the scan, it came back with, in this case, 7 stocks. And you can see across these 7 stocks, in this case, we did a chart duration of 1 year. But if you went and plotted these on a longer duration, but overall you can see that all of them have a bottom left to a top right kind of a overshooting kind of a pattern. They all did extremely well, and each and every one of them were very bullish looking charts. And no wonder when you ran the scan with RSI being that strong, all these came up. One among here is Oracle, listed in India as Oracle Financial Services. That one did, as you can see, had a huge jump starting from late January. Oracle was always in the news with AI and all the investments that they're doing, and it has since then just from less than $3,000 went up to 8,000. In fact, some of the strongest ones were like 250 going to almost close to 600, little over 2.5x. This is Oil India, which is one of the oil natural gas companies. Solar stock from 4,000 went over 8,000, doubled. Tata Invest is actually a very interesting one, which did the best in this group of 7. This is actually a lot like Berkshire Hathaway. Tata is a big conglomerate industrial arm in India. They manage funds. They invest into different companies. And the Tata is also called TCIL. The Tata managed fund actually did an awesome job from going below 2,000 to 9,000. And that was actually the best performing stock among these 7 that we found. So with that, thanks for your time. We'll meet you again next week and share what happens to the market. The key thing, again, to sum it up, is we are waiting for Jensen's keynote on Monday. We'll see what that does to NVIDIA and the semiconductors. Fed goes on, Chief Powell with a press release and then a press conference on Wednesday. So those are the 2 key market moving events we're going to look forward to next week. Thank you.